My name is Daniel Prescott. I'm 54 years old, and I learned the hard way that real love doesn't guarantee a place in someone's life. You can give everything, absolutely everything, and still be written out like you were a temporary placeholder instead of the foundation. I met Leona at a charity gala for foster kids. We were both divorced, both carrying the bruises of failed marriages. She wore a green dress that brought out her eyes. I spilled a red wine on my cufflink. We laughed. Sadi, her daughter, was shy but sweet. She was 9. Her biological father, Malcolm, was already a ghost, showing up twice a year, tossing around a check and vanishing before the ink dried. One Saturday, I took her to the hair salon. She sat small in the big chair, knees swinging, eyes down. "Will you braid it like Mom used to?" she asked the stylist, her voice barely above a whisper. That was the first time she called me Dad. Quiet, hopeful. It split something open in me. We weren't official. There were no adoption papers, no dramatic announcements. I became Dad one scraped knee, one math lesson, one parent-teacher meeting at a time. I bought her first science kit. I stayed up late with her when she had nightmares. I learned every lyric to her favorite Disney soundtrack because she asked me to sing it during thunderstorms. When she graduated high school, she looked straight at me and mouthed, "Thanks, Dad." That moment felt like confirmation that the love, the effort, the sacrifices, they counted. Then came college, then distance. At first, I chalked up the fewer phone calls to independence, but I started noticing things. She began calling me Daniel by accident. I thought it was a slip. Then I noticed she started responding to Malcolm's Instagram posts, old photos. Captions like, "My little princess," with me cropped out. She commented with hearts, "Love you too, Dad." Not to me, to him. Still, I stayed supportive. I paid part of her tuition. I drove 4 hours to help her move. When she got engaged, I was the one who offered to help with the wedding. I should have seen it then, the shift. We were at a barbecue when it landed. "I'm just glad both my parents will walk me down the aisle," she said, smiling. "Both?" I asked. "Yeah, Malcolm and I already picked the song." She said it like it was sweet, inclusive. Not like she had just carved me out with a butter knife and handed my place to a man who hadn't shown up for anything except photos and applause. I nodded. I didn't argue. I went home and stared at the wedding invite mock-up. Her mom's name, Malcolm's name, my name not there. It hit like a cold slap. I had helped pick the venue, booked the florist, paid deposits, and she didn't even list me as part of her family. And yet, I kept showing up, because love doesn't always keep score. Or so I told myself. At dress fittings, she called me Daniel, not Dad, not even hey, just Daniel, like I was the event coordinator, like I was a valet. When the florist asked, "And you are?" she didn't even glance up when I answered. I paid the DJ. I upgraded the chairs. I paid $12,000 for the venue because she said it was the one, but out of budget. No thank you. No acknowledgement. One night, I sat at home with a binder full of receipts and realized something chilling. I had spent $37,000 on a wedding where I wasn't even in the front row. The morning of the wedding, I arrived early, helped set up chairs, fix the generator, wipe down champagne flutes, and when she arrived, in her white gown, radiant, floating out of a car, she ran into his arms. She laughed, full and free, with him. I stood in the back row as he walked her down the aisle. "Who gives this bride away?" the officiant asked. She held Malcolm's hand. No hesitation. Cameras flashed. People clapped. No one noticed I was missing. I had paid for everything, but in the story of her life, I was a ghost. Later, during the speeches, Malcolm called her my girl. They danced under lights I had paid for, music I had selected. The only thing she gave me was a folded piece of paper, the final wedding bill, $8,750. She didn't say thank you. She didn't even say goodbye. I drove home, quiet, sat in the living room. The invoice on the coffee table like a verdict. I had paid to be erased. That was the night something in me broke, not loud, not dramatic, just snapped. And that's when I decided I was done being invisible. I didn't say a word that night. I sat in the dark, the wedding invoice staring at me like a taunt. I could still hear the DJ from a video someone tagged me in. Father of the bride dance. How sweet, except it wasn't me in the clip. It was Malcolm, spinning her in circles under lights I paid for. I closed the video, unfollowed everyone, blocked the wedding planner, turned off my phone, then I started collecting. Not gifts, receipts. I went into my email, searched for every invoice related to the wedding, every deposit, every booking, every last minute. Could you cover this real quick? Daniel, we're swamped. The total $43,272.19, 43 grand, on a wedding where I wasn't thanked, introduced, or even acknowledged as the man who raised her, where my name wasn't spoken once. I didn't cry, I didn't rant, I didn't drink, I just decided no more. No more slow bleeding for people who saw me as background noise. The first thing I did was cancel the honeymoon suite upgrade. It was under my name. They'd already checked in, but I called the hotel, confirmed the reservation, and reversed the charges. They were downgraded to a standard room, and the staff was instructed not to comp anything under my card. The hotel manager said, "Sir, they seem confused about the downgrade." I said, "So was I when I wasn't listed as her father." Silence. Then understood. That felt good. Quiet revenge, no shouting. Just the slow, inevitable removal of myself from their fantasy. When they got back, Leona texted first, "Hey, did something happen with the hotel? There were some weird billing issues." I didn't answer. A day later, Daniel, "Please don't be petty. The wedding was beautiful. Don't ruin it now." Petty. Petty is what they called me when I didn't laugh at Malcolm's joke about how I kept the seat warm. Petty is what Sadi's friends whispered when I quietly stepped out of the reception after she introduced Malcolm as the only man who's been there since day one. I was petty now. Okay, so I started pulling back. Canceled the joint Costco membership I was paying for. Switched off the shared Hulu. Removed my card from the food delivery accounts. They noticed. Leona called. "I don't know what's going on with you, but this isn't the Daniel I knew. You're acting so cold." Cold, no. Just awake. Then came the messages from Sadi. Not "Hi, Dad," not "Can we talk?" Just, "Hey, the car won't start. Need help with insurance renewal. Malcolm's a little tight on cash, and we wanted to ask if..." I didn't answer. Not once. Not out of rage. Out of peace. The silence from me hit them harder than I expected. 1 week in, I got a letter from Leona's sister, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She wrote, "Family is complicated, but you've always been her rock. Maybe this is just a phase." A phase. Like raising someone for 2 decades was a dress rehearsal. I folded the letter and tossed it. Then I did something that felt radical. I booked a weekend away. Alone. A small cabin near a lake 2 hours out of town. No cell service, just books, silence, and air that didn't smell like guilt. When I came back, I had 32 missed calls. Leona, Sadi, Malcolm, even. He left a voicemail that started with, "Look, man, I know we've had our differences." I deleted it. When people start treating you like a bank with arms, your silence becomes violence in their eyes. Sadi finally showed up at my door. She looked tired, no makeup, her voice was tight. "Why are you freezing us out?" I didn't invite her in. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You gave my seat away," I said calmly. She blinked. "What?" "You gave my seat away." I repeated, "At your wedding, in your life, in every photo and post and thank you speech. And now you're here because the engine light came on and Malcolm can't afford an oil change." "That's not fair," she said. I smiled. "That's not family," I said. She stood there, shocked, hurt. I could see it, but not regretful, just surprised that the man who always said yes finally said no. "I needed both of you," she whispered. "No," I said, "you needed an audience, and now the show's over." She left without another word. That night, I slept 8 hours straight. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up dreading my phone. I didn't feel like someone's backup plan. I felt safe. In my own skin, in my own home. I thought they'd stop after that, but they didn't. Next came the guilt campaign. Malcolm sent me a text, "You're being childish. She's just a kid trying to connect with her real father." Her real father. I stared at that sentence until my eyes burned. Then I sent him one back. "Real fathers don't need invoices to prove their worth. But in case you forgot, $43,272.19, that's what real looks like." No response. Leona messaged me the next morning, "Don't make her choose." I didn't reply. Because she already did. They say betrayal comes in waves, but that's not true. It comes in files. Bank files, email threads, screenshots. You don't get stabbed once. You discover 10 little paper cuts, all hidden under compliments and emoji hearts, and suddenly you're bleeding out. It started with a tax letter. I was sorting through my mail, the boring kind. Envelopes with barcodes and IRS warnings when I saw something odd, a notice flagged for identity confirmation. It said I'd co-signed on a vehicle loan. Recently, the loan was approved 3 weeks before Sadi's wedding. I hadn't bought a car. I hadn't signed a thing. I called the number, waited 30 minutes. A man answered and read off the co-sign details. Name 1, Sadie Ann Lovell. Co-signer Daniel Prescott. My name, my credit, my liability. I asked them to email the documents. The second I opened the PDF, my stomach flipped. There it was, my signature. Badly forged. The same squiggly P I only ever used on Post-it notes and gift cards. The same fake email they once used to claim a rental furniture refund. They forged me for a $32,000 SUV. And the kicker, the dealership they used was one I recommended. The salesman had offered me a referral bonus. Malcolm must have known that. Used it. Played dumb. I sent everything to Nina. She called within 10 minutes. This is criminal, she said. They didn't just take advantage, they impersonated you. That's felony level. Let's move, I told her. She began the paperwork that day. I felt nothing at first, just the mechanical hum of steps finally being taken. I went through my accounts, closed old joint logins, scrubbed anything with my name linked to them, canceled the emergency credit card I'd left on file just in case Sadi ever needed it. When the alert pinged from a gas station a day later, declined card, I smiled, small, hollow, but it was a start. I cleaned everything. Financially, emotionally, I deleted a decade of backup photos, unshared every cloud album, removed myself from every Google Drive they still used like I was their unpaid IT guy. Then I found the final blow, a shared Dropbox folder, wedding docs, backup. I don't know why I clicked it. Curiosity closure. Inside were PDFs, invoices, notes from the planner, and a Word doc titled Family Seating Plan. I opened it. First line. Keep Daniel away from the front rows, not great for pics. We want this to look clean. The next line, if he asks to speak, redirect to Malcolm, further down. In a different font, he gets emotional. Might cry. Don't want him to make it awkward. That was when I realized it wasn't just oversight. It wasn't just a forgotten name on an invitation. They planned to erase me, thought about it, wrote it down, discussed how to manage me like I was a liability, like I was a wedding vendor who might get drunk and overshare. I stared at the file for a long time. Then I screen recorded everything, sent it to Nina. She didn't even respond with words, just a thumbs up and a file transfer link labeled K/evidence/final. That same day, I walked to the closet, pulled down the dusty lockbox I hadn't opened since the day I proposed to Leona all those years ago. Inside photos, a worn-out Father's Day card with Sadie's crooked handwriting, a movie ticket stub from her first PG-13 film, the letter she wrote me in 6th grade, even if I had 2 dads, you'd still be my favorite. I took a breath, folded them gently, slid them into an envelope, wrote one word on the front, goodbye, and then I burned it. Not in rage, not in ritual, just closure. The next morning, Nina sent the full complaint to law enforcement and began the civil suit filings. 2 tracks fraud charges and financial restitution. Restitution for the car, the wedding, the travel, every single documented dollar. A week later, Malcolm was served first at his new job, managing a storage unit facility, according to Amy, who was quietly keeping tabs. He turned pale and sat down on a milk crate, shaking his head. Leona was served at the dental office where she worked reception. Sadi, at her apartment on her birthday, and they were expecting me to send flowers, a card, a check. Maybe. Instead, they got papers. Amy called me later. Word's spreading, she said. They're spiraling. Sadi's crying about how you're ruining her life. She planned mine. I said simply, a pause. Then Amy asked something unexpected. When's the last time you felt proud of yourself? The question stunned me. I thought about it for a moment. Just now, I said, because I wasn't the man who funded other people's dreams anymore. I wasn't the invisible hand, the silent sponsor. I was Daniel Prescott, and I was done being disposable. The real storm hadn't even started, but I had already survived worse. And this time, I had the receipts. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old books. Nina walked beside me, blazer crisp, tablet glowing with tabs and emails. We didn't speak much. There wasn't much to say. Everything was already in the file, every dollar, every forged document, every fake signature, Every moment I'd been erased with a smile and a wedding hashtag. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. It didn't even take long. A short hearing. The judge reviewed the civil filings, frowned at the forged car documents, nodded at the tax notice, and raised an eyebrow at the wedding seating file Nina had highlighted in yellow. Intent to exclude a parental figure from official proceedings after years of financial support, she murmured, flipping pages, and no formal debt repayment plans established. No, Your Honor, Nina said. The gavel hit the desk like a heartbeat. Motion to proceed, discovery process opened, subpoenas granted. Outside the building, I felt something unfamiliar. Not relief, not vengeance. Clarity. The days that followed moved fast. Malcolm was hit first. Civil charges of fraud. Then the dealership followed with their own inquiry they'd lent based on falsified information. His new job gone within a week. Leona called me that night. A voicemail. Shaky voice. Daniel, what are you doing? We didn't mean for it to go this far. Didn't mean for it to go this far? As if the betrayal had been casual. As if erasing me from Sadi's wedding photos was an accident. As if signing my name to debt was a minor lapse. I saved the voicemail, sent it to Nina. The next one came from Sadi. A long email this time. It started with, "I don't recognize this version of you," and ended with, "Why are you punishing me like this?" Punishment. I had given her life, time, rent, tuition, therapy bills, plane tickets, Christmas gifts for friends she never introduced me to, a wedding I wasn't invited to be seen in. And she called this punishment. I replied with a single line, "This isn't revenge, this is return to sender." I didn't hear back, but the consequences began piling up like dominoes. Amy sent me screenshots from Facebook. A post by Leona's cousin, "Family drama is poison. I don't stand with people who steal from those who raise them." The comments were brutal. Is this about Daniel? Wow, she was always so sweet in public. That poor man, I heard he paid for everything. It spread like wildfire. A Reddit post surfaced. Anonymous, but clearly about them. My friend's stepdad paid for her wedding, then got cut out. Now he's suing. Are we the bad ones? Thousands of upvotes. They lost control of the narrative. For once, they couldn't spin it. And while they scrambled to save face, I was rebuilding mine. I cleared out my house, sold the furniture they used to sprawl across, donated Sadi's old dresser, took down the family photos and replaced them with prints I actually liked: landscapes, city lights, vintage maps. The couch gone. Replaced with a sleek leather one I picked out without needing anyone's opinion. My evenings were quiet. I read. I cooked simple meals. I slept with the windows open and no expectations in my inbox. Then, one afternoon, something surreal happened. I got a call from the bank. Apparently, Leona had attempted to access a joint account I had long forgotten about, a tiny one we once used to save for a future family trip. It had about $400 in it. She tried to withdraw it. The banker froze the transaction and called me. "Would you like to close it entirely?" I smiled. "Yes," I said. "Please send the remainder as a cashier's check to a local foster youth organization." I didn't even want the last $400. I wanted it to go somewhere it mattered. Because that was the real difference. They had taken, I had given, and now I was giving to people who might actually be thankful. Court proceedings moved faster than anyone expected. With evidence stacked so neatly, the fraud charges began to solidify. They offered to settle. Nina declined. We had more to gain with time. Plus, every passing day was doing more damage to their reputations than any courtroom ever could. Malcolm was evicted from his apartment. Sadi and Leona were spotted moving in together. Amy said they were using folding chairs and sharing a single TV. "They look like they aged a decade," she said. "You?" I looked around my quiet living room. "I'm feeling younger," I told her. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't dancing in their suffering. I was just clean. Then, finally, came the hearing date for restitution. I didn't even attend in person. Nina handled it. The judge ruled in our favor, full repayment ordered for all provable financial abuse, the wedding, the car, and damages related to the identity fraud. I didn't expect the money. They didn't have it. But the ruling wasn't about reimbursement. It was about truth. A court had now said, aloud, on record, Daniel Prescott was not just a stepdad. He was exploited. And that exploitation had consequences. A few weeks later, I received a letter, handwritten, sloppy, pages crumpled. From Sadi. She apologized. Sort of. She said she didn't realize how much she'd hurt me, that Malcolm seemed like he wanted to be there, and that she just wanted to believe he was capable. She admitted she felt guilty when she saw me at the wedding standing in the back, wiping down chairs while Malcolm toasted her with a fake laugh and a borrowed tux. "I didn't want to believe I was using you," she wrote. "But I guess I was. I'm sorry." I read it. I folded it. I placed it in the same lockbox where I once kept her school awards. Then I locked the box, slid it onto a high shelf, and walked away. Because the apology, while overdue, didn't undo anything, I wasn't the man who needed closure anymore. I already had it. The reckoning wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was me taking back every inch of myself they had claimed with legal proof, quiet strength, and finally, peace. The day after the court ruling, I woke up to sunlight instead of stress. No buzzing phone, no passive-aggressive texts, no questions wrapped in guilt, just quiet. That silence used to terrify me. Now it felt earned. I made coffee black, hot, simple, sat by the window and looked out at a world I didn't have to fix for anyone. I didn't owe explanations. I didn't owe forgiveness. And for the first time in over 2 decades, I didn't owe money. It was over. I had spent so long bracing for impact that I didn't know how to stand still. So I moved. I took down the last photo of us, the one with Saudi on her college graduation day. It used to sit on the hallway table, her arm around Malcolm, my hand on her shoulder. She'd cropped me out when she posted it online, but I had kept the print. I didn't rip it. I didn't burn it. I packed it away. Not because I missed it, but because I no longer needed to prove it happened. The memories didn't need to sit on shelves. I carried the truth inside now. A week later, I sold the house. Not out of spite, out of relief. Too many ghosts. Too many echoes in the hallways of Daniel. "Can you cover this?" And "Dad, we forgot to include you." I bought a smaller place. Just 1 bedroom, big windows, modern kitchen, no guest room, no need for one. I started traveling, not grand tours or luxury cruises, just small, simple trips. A cabin in Vermont, a train to Seattle. I once sat on a bench in Denver for 2 hours just watching people walk by, holding coffee that didn't cost me a fraction of my dignity. I didn't post pictures, didn't need to prove I was okay. I was okay. Amy called occasionally. She kept tabs, gently, never prying. One day she asked if I ever wanted to talk to Saudi again. I told her, "I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not available for old roles." She understood. Saudi never tried again after that last letter. I heard through Amy that she and Leona were renting a small duplex now. No car. They'd sold the SUV to cover legal fees. Malcolm had moved to another state. No one hears from him. The life they built without me didn't last. But I didn't cheer for that, because the opposite of pain isn't revenge. It's freedom. And I was finally truly free. I joined a community center, taught financial basics to young adults. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who got exploited was now helping others avoid it. One night, a young guy lingered after class. He said, "You talk like someone who's been through some stuff." I nodded. "I have." "Did you lose everything?" I paused. "No," I said. I finally stopped giving everything away. He grinned. "Bet that felt good." "Better than good," I said. It felt like breathing. The best part, I no longer thought about how they were doing. Their lives weren't my cliffhangers anymore. I didn't scroll their profiles, didn't ask mutual friends for updates. I had unspooled the tether. Their chaos didn't touch me. That was the ultimate revenge, not their failure, but my peace. One evening, I stood on the pier, watching the sunset paint the water with molten orange. I pulled out a small notebook, wrote a single line. I was never the extra, I was the foundation. Then I closed it, took a breath, and let the tide roll in. Because starting over isn't about erasing the past. It's about refusing to live under its weight. I no longer introduce myself with stories of what I did for them. Now I just say, "My name is Daniel. I like strong coffee, cold lakes, and mornings without drama." And that, I've learned, is more than enough. Story 2. My name is Finn Carter. I'm 35 years old, and I learned the hard way that family doesn't mean what I thought it did. I live in Boise, Idaho, with my wife Tessa. Last winter, after 4 heartbreaking years of infertility, tears, and doctor visits, we finally got news that changed everything. Tessa was pregnant. We were having a baby, a boy. I remember the way she looked at me when the doctor confirmed it, like hope had finally come home. So I decided to throw a baby shower. Not just any shower, a real celebration. Because this baby wasn't just wanted, he was fought for, hoped for, and prayed for. And I wanted my family to be part of it. Most of them lived in Orlando: my mom, my dad, my younger sister Allison, her husband Derek, and their 13-year-old daughter Riley. I hadn't seen them in person in over 3 years. COVID, money issues, excuses, I'd heard them all, but I thought this was our chance to reconnect. Celebrate something real together. Flights weren't cheap, I knew that, especially for Allison, who was always just getting by, even though they somehow managed to remodel their kitchen and get Riley a $2,000 show dog last Christmas. But still, I wanted them there. So I wired them the money, $11,000 in total. Flights, hotel, rental car. I even covered the airport snacks. Every single detail was arranged. All they had to do was show up. At first, my mom seemed genuinely excited. She texted things like, "Can't wait to rub that baby bump," and "We're coming, don't you worry." Allison, not so much. Just short one-word texts. "Cool." "Yep." Derek didn't text at all. Riley asked if we had good Wi-Fi, or she'd literally die. Classic. Tessa warned me not to get too hopeful. "You know how they are," she said gently, but I wanted to believe they'd come through this time. 2 days before the shower, I sent out the final itinerary and even pre-stocked their hotel rooms with snacks I knew they liked. I made a welcome family sign to hold up at the airport. Tessa teased me for going overboard, but I believed if I just did everything right, they'd finally show up. The morning of the shower was perfect. Sunshine, cool breeze. Tessa looked radiant despite being 6 months along. Her friends showed up first, then her cousins. Her mom brought cupcakes. There were decorations, tiny onesies, banners, and laughter. But not one call or message from my side of the family. Nothing. I checked the airline confirmation. They had landed last night. They were definitely in Boise. I called my mom straight to voicemail. I tried Allison blocked. Derek same. I was still checking my phone when, halfway through the party, I got a text from my mom. No greeting, no punctuation, just this. "Sorry, Finn, plans changed. Pretend this kid matters to us." No. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just those words like a slap across the face. I showed Tessa the message. She blinked, then just said, "Wow," and shook her head. They'd ditched my baby shower, the only child I might ever have, for a vacation. I didn't know how yet, but I would soon. My hands were shaking as I tried to call again. Nothing. Blocked. Then I opened Instagram. That's when I saw it. Riley had posted a story, her in a palm tree print shirt, with a flower in her hair. Caption, "Aloha, baby." They were in Hawaii. They'd used the money I sent them for my son's baby shower to fly to Hawaii. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone. I just sat there, ice cold. While the party moved around me like background noise, Tessa went upstairs to change out of her dress. Her family started quietly packing up. People gave me those "I'm so sorry" eyes. But I didn't cry. I opened my phone and sent one text. To my dad. Just the facts. Told him I was canceling the hotel since they weren't staying there. Said I hoped they enjoyed Hawaii. Wished him a safe flight home. 40 minutes later, my phone blew up. Missed calls, voicemails, texts from my mom and Allison crying, begging. "It's not what you think. We thought it was canceled. It wasn't our fault." But I didn't even listen. I went inside, grabbed a beer, sat on the back porch, and let the silence wrap around me. After an hour, I opened the voicemails. Mom was sobbing. Said she thought the baby shower had been postponed. Said no one told her anything. Said Riley had begged for this trip. Allison's voice shook. She said I had blindsided her. That Riley was crying. That I had made her look bad by canceling the hotel. She even brought up how I skipped her second baby's christening years ago, as if that had anything to do with this. I didn't bother listening to Derek's message. I already knew the tone. Something dismissive, something smug. I was done. Not even angry, just done. Tessa came out and sat beside me. Quiet. She didn't ask what I was going to do. She didn't give advice. She just looked at me with that "whatever happens, I've got you" kind of love. I stood up, went inside, grabbed my laptop. Receipts. That's what I needed. Luckily, I'd booked everything as refundable. Something in the back of my mind had warned me. I started canceling flights. Boom, $7,200 refunded. Then the hotel, another $2,000 off my credit card. They'd show up after their tropical dream trip and realize they owed the full hotel rate if they still wanted rooms. But I wasn't done. I logged into our dusty old family group chat, Family First, and posted 3 screenshots. My mom's brutal text, "Pretend this kid matters to us." No. Riley's Hawaii beach selfie. The flight cancellation confirmation. Then I typed, "Don't worry, you already chose your family," and left the group. Tessa didn't say a word. She just reached out, touched her belly, and said, "He's got a real family." But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. The real fallout was still coming. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. 30 missed calls, 12 new voicemails, dozens of text messages. I didn't have to read them to know what they said. The screenshot I posted in the old family group chat had gone nuclear. Apparently, not everyone appreciated the truth being dragged into the light. I had nuked their little bubble, and the blast radius reached relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, aunts, that one uncle who only shows up for funerals and free food. Everyone had an opinion now, but I didn't regret it. I sat at the table, sipped coffee, and watched my phone buzz like a dying fish. Tessa came downstairs, still in her robe, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You gonna check those?" "Nope," I said. "They can wait." She didn't press, just leaned down and kissed my forehead. Good. I eventually opened one voicemail out of curiosity. It was my mom. Again. This time more furious than apologetic. "You made us look horrible. Finn, how could you twist things like that? We just wanted a break. You know how hard the last few years have been." "Right. Because my baby shower was apparently the perfect excuse to fly off to Hawaii and recharge." Next message, Allison. Her voice was sharp, defensive. "You think this makes you some hero? All you've done is embarrass the family?" "Riley is heartbroken. You're acting like a child." That one made me laugh. "A child, Allison? Children throw tantrums. I just posted receipts." I ignored the rest of the messages. But the one that finally made me pause came from someone I hadn't thought about in a while. Uncle Reed, my dad's brother. Always quiet, always watching. His text simply read, "Finally, someone said it." It hit me harder than I expected. Because growing up, I was always told not to stir the pot, not to make waves, to forgive and forget. That family came first no matter how badly they hurt you. But Uncle Reed, he saw it. I wasn't stirring the pot, I was dumping out the spoiled soup. Later that day, I got an email from the hotel. Subject: outstanding balance. Notification: immediate action required. Turns out the hotel had tried to run my mom's backup card. Declined. Standard policy kicked in. They tried the original booking method, my card. They nearly charged me $1,300 in no-show and penalty fees. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. Tessa saw my face. "Call them," she said. "Now." I called. Explained everything. Sent over screenshots of the cancellation confirmation, the text from my mom, Riley's Instagram post, everything. After about 40 minutes on the phone, they agreed I wasn't responsible. They'd pursue the fee from my mom directly. I hung up, breathing hard. That could have ended differently, so easily. But that wasn't the end. That night, I got a message on WhatsApp from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "Can we talk?" It was from my dad. I hadn't spoken to him in weeks. He rarely got involved. Always stayed quiet in the background like some kind of emotional Switzerland. I stared at the message, then he sent a photo. It was him, sitting in a plastic chair in his backyard, their dog by his feet, a half-finished beer on the table beside him. Caption: "Didn't go to Hawaii, stayed home." I blinked. Wait, what? He never went? When Mom, Allison, Derek, and Riley boarded that plane, he stayed behind, said he was tired, said the dog needed looking after, said he'd catch the next flight. But there was no next flight. He just didn't want to be a part of it. My chest tightened. I hadn't even thought to check. I assumed he was with them, complicit, but he wasn't. He stayed. He wrote again. "I tried calling after the shower. Thought you wouldn't want to hear from me. I saw the group chat. I understand if you're done with us, but I need you to know I didn't choose them over you." Tessa read the messages over my shoulder, said nothing at first. Then, quietly, "You have a choice now too." "What choice?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Peace or war?" I didn't answer, because she was right. They wanted a war. But what I wanted was something quieter. Still, Madison, sorry, Allison wasn't done. Later that week, she sent a long message. Not apologetic, not kind. "If you don't delete the screenshots and apologize, I'll tell everyone why you're really having a baby. Bet your friends don't know the full truth." There it was. A threat, and a cheap one. Because she was referring to the fact that Tessa and I went through IVF, something we had kept private not because we were ashamed, but because it was ours. We never told anyone except immediate family. And now, Allison was threatening to use it as a weapon. I stared at the screen. This was another level. Tessa came into the room, saw my face. "What now?" she asked. I handed her the phone. She read it, slowly, then calmly said, "Let her scream into the void. We're not fighting." But inside me, a fire was building. They had crossed every line, ignored my kid, lied to my face, spent my money, and now this? I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to threaten. I was going to tell the truth, loudly, cleanly. So I sat down and started typing. First, a private email to friends, close family, people who mattered. I told them about our IVF journey, about how hard it had been, how beautiful, how long we'd waited for this baby, that we weren't ashamed. Then I posted publicly, "After a long road, Tessa and I are finally expecting our miracle. IVF made this possible. We're proud of our journey. Thank you to everyone who supported us." No drama, no names, just truth. And it exploded. People commented, messaged, shared their own stories. The love poured in. Tessa cried reading them. And just like that, Allison's threat powerless. She couldn't expose something we had already embraced. She couldn't twist a truth we stood tall in. I thought that would be the end. But life had one more twist. The days after my public post felt surreal. For once, I wasn't hiding. I was standing in the light, sharing my truth, and it felt freeing. Messages poured in. Friends, coworkers, distant cousins I barely knew, all sharing stories of struggle, hope, and resilience. But not everyone was happy. Allison's online presence started to crumble. A mutual friend sent me screenshots her posts on Facebook, full of vague digs about toxic family members ruining her vacation. Comments flooded in accusations of selfishness, financial freeloading, and worse. Some even tagged her photos of Riley's Hawaii trip, mocking her luxury while claiming victimhood. Within days, Allison deactivated her account. Derek tried to defend her, but no one cared. My mom, silence, suspicious, deliberate silence. I felt no joy in any of it, because none of this was what I wanted. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wanted peace, but sometimes peace demands boundaries. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. It was my dad, alone. No suitcase, no entourage, just him. He looked tired, older. He held a small grocery bag, like he wasn't sure what to bring. We stood awkwardly for a moment. Then he said, "I just wanted to see you and her and him." Tessa appeared from the kitchen, smiling softly, and waved him in. We sat at the kitchen table. Dad fiddled nervously, then pulled out a small blue box. Inside was a knitted blanket, pale blue and white. "My mom made this for me when I was born," he said quietly. I thought maybe he should have it. Tessa blinked back tears and stood to give us space. Dad and I sat in silence. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't make excuses. He didn't bring up my mom or Allison. He just sat there, like he knew this might be his only chance. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry, Finn. I should have done more." I didn't answer right away. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's slow, stubborn, hard. But something inside me softened, not because he begged, but because he showed up. After a while, I nodded. We weren't magically okay, but maybe, just maybe, we could be. Before he left, he turned to Tessa. "He's lucky to have you," he said softly. "You both deserve better than all that noise." When the door shut behind him, it felt like a chapter closed. The next weeks were quieter. Allison sent a long, dramatic email about family, blood ties, and regret. I didn't reply. Tessa and I focused on the nursery, late-night ice cream runs, painting the ceiling with glow-in-the-dark stars, planning a future built on chosen family, not obligation. When our son was born, I held him close, and in that moment, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Tessa was right. The best revenge wasn't anger or shaming. It was a quiet life filled with love they could never touch. They were on the outside, where they belonged. But then, 6 months later, I got a letter, not an email, not a text, a real letter, handwritten, my name on the envelope. The handwriting was familiar, not messy like Allison's, not pristine like Mom's, young and uncertain. Inside was a short, awkward note from Riley. She apologized for missing the baby shower, said she didn't understand what was going on, said she felt lost. She hoped maybe, someday, she could meet her cousin. "Even if you hate me now," she wrote, "I'm trying to be better. I sat with the letter a long time. In all the chaos, I'd barely thought of Riley as a person, just Allison's spoiled kid. But now I saw her differently. A pawn. Not the one who chose betrayal. Tessa read the letter with me. She looked at me and said, "It's your choice. You don't owe anyone. But maybe this time it's not about them." I didn't answer right away. I needed time. Time to see if I could open the door. Just a crack, without letting old wounds flood back. Later that week, I wrote back a simple letter. Told Riley I appreciated her reaching out, that it wasn't her fault, that maybe, someday, when she's ready, there might be a place for her in our lives. No promises. No guarantees. Just a crack in the wall. I mailed it before I could second-guess myself. Weeks passed. Life moved on. Our son said his first word. Dog. Of course. Tessa's golden retriever was basically his third parent. The nursery filled with toys, books, tiny shoes he couldn't keep on his feet. I didn't expect another letter. Then, 2 months later, one came, with a hand-drawn picture inside. Crayon, messy but earnest. Our son, big smile. Next to him, 2 stick figures labeled Finn and Riley, at the bottom. No matter what happens, I'll be waiting if you ever want me in his life. Family isn't blood, it's love. Tessa cried softly against my shoulder. We put the picture in the nursery next to the stars. Not because we were ready, not because we'd forgotten or forgiven, but because sometimes the bravest thing is leaving the door open, even just a little, for those willing to walk through it, the right way. The nursery was quiet except for the soft cooing of our son. Tessa and I sat on the floor, surrounded by stacks of children's books and tiny blankets. I held his little hand. He looked up at me, eyes wide, trust shining in them like a promise. I smiled. This was what mattered. Not the chaos. Not the betrayals. Not the family that had chosen distance over love. No, what mattered was the here and now. The small moments. The first smile. The gentle breath against my chest. The slow building of something real. I thought back to the day I posted those screenshots. The night my family chose a Hawaiian vacation over my baby shower. At first, it had shattered me. I wondered if I was crazy to hope for better. But that hope had been a light, a guide through the dark. And now I saw it differently. They weren't the family I wanted. They were the family I was born into. But not the one I belonged to. That belonged to me, Tessa, and our son. Our little tribe. We built it with love. Not obligation, with choices. Not chains. We found peace in boundaries. In honesty, in acceptance. The letter from Riley, the girl caught in the middle, had cracked open a door I thought was sealed. I'd sent her a simple reply. No pressure. Just a reminder that love is patient. That sometimes family is complicated. That forgiveness takes time. Tessa held my hand as I wrote. She reminded me that healing is a journey, not a destination. And I believed her, because finally I felt ready. Ready to let go of the anger. Ready to stop carrying the weight of their choices. Ready to live for us, not them. In the months that followed, I kept in touch with Riley. Slow, careful messages. No pressure. Just building trust. I met her once for coffee. Nervous but hopeful. She apologized for everything she hadn't understood. For being dragged into storms she never asked for. I told her it was okay. That sometimes love means weathering the storm together. I felt the walls I'd built for years start to crumble. Not because they deserved it, because I deserved peace. Tessa and I started planning small trips. Weekend hikes, picnics in the park. We didn't need Hawaii, we had each other, and that was enough. I found a new job closer to home. More flexible, less demanding. More time for diapers and midnight feedings. Tessa's belly grew rounder. Our son's laughter grew louder. Our home filled with warmth. Friends became family. People who showed up. People who cared. No drama. No games. Just real love. One afternoon, I sat on the porch sipping coffee, watching the sunrise paint the sky. I thought about the road I'd traveled, the broken promises, the empty seats, the silent phone calls, but none of that mattered now. Because I was whole, because I was free, because I had built something that no one could take away. I typed a short post on social media, not to boast, not to prove anything, just a simple truth. Family isn't always who you're born to, it's who you choose. And I've chosen love. Comments poured in, supportive words, stories of their own journeys, hope, connection. And in that moment I knew I had found my family, my peace, my home. The past was a closed book, the future, a blank page, and I was ready to write my story. One day, one breath, one smile at a time to... Story 3. My name is Caleb. I'm 32, and last month was the day I thought I'd finally fix things with my dad. It was his 54th birthday, and after years of feeling like a ghost in my own family, I decided to do something big. I spent months scraping every penny, skipping vacations, cutting back on food, just to save enough to buy him a car, not a flashy one, just something practical. A black used Honda Accord, clean, reliable, and about $9,000 out of my savings. It was the nicest thing I ever owned, and I never wanted it for myself. I wanted it to be a bridge between us, a symbol of my effort to be part of his life, to earn a place in the family. The morning of the birthday, I showed up early to his house in Portland. Mom was in the kitchen baking a cake, looking tired but nodding at me like she was trying to be supportive. My sister, Avery, was on the couch pretending I wasn't there, scrolling on her phone. I told Mom I had a surprise for Dad. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give when you don't know how you're supposed to feel. I parked the Honda right outside, slapped a big red bow on the hood, took a deep breath, and waited. Dad came down the stairs just after noon. Everyone was gathered in the living room. I pulled the keys from my jacket pocket and held them out. No speech, no fanfare, just happy birthday. Dad, thanks for everything. His eyes flicked to me, then to the car. For a split second, I thought I saw something, maybe gratitude, maybe relief. But it vanished like smoke. He snatched the keys from my hand, shoved them into his pocket like I'd handed him garbage, and said coldly, right in front of everyone, "You know you're not wanted here. You're not family." Those words didn't register at first. I stood frozen. Then Avery, without even looking up from her phone, said, "Have a nice trip home, selfish." The room was silent after that. I could feel my hands shaking. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. Instead, I pulled out my phone, hit play on a video I'd saved for this exact moment. It was Dad walking through the mall 2 towns over, holding hands with some woman half his age. They were laughing, kissing in the middle of the crowd. Like it was some rom-com scene. Like he didn't have a wife at home. Like none of it mattered. I turned my phone so Mom could see. Her mouth dropped open. Her hands flew to her face. Then she screamed. It was raw and broken, and it crushed my chest. Dad's face went pale. I didn't wait for his excuses. I shoved my hand in his pocket, pulled out the keys, and walked out the door. I got into the Honda and drove away without looking back. Through the living room window, I caught Mom yelling, pressing against Dad's chest. Dad stood motionless like a statue. Avery finally looked up from her phone, her face white for the first time all day. At the time, I thought that was it, that I'd won, that I'd finally crossed the bridge they never wanted me to cross. But it wasn't over, not even close. The next morning, I woke lighter than I had in years. I made coffee and sat on my apartment balcony, trying to imagine a life without them weighing me down. For a while, it almost felt real. Then my phone exploded, missed calls from Mom, texts from Avery that I ignored. I figured they wanted to guilt me into forgiving Dad. I wasn't interested. That afternoon, there was a furious pounding at my door. When I opened it, Dad was there. His face was red, eyes wild, like he hadn't slept. He pushed past me into my apartment before I could say a word. I told him to leave, calm at first, but he didn't hear. He stormed to the window, saw the Honda parked below, then stomped outside. I followed barefoot and half asleep. He was standing over the car, scratching deep lines into the hood, as if carving his name into it. I yelled for him to stop. He didn't. He stomped on the side mirror until it snapped off. Then he kicked the doors hard, leaving dents everywhere. Neighbors came out, filming with their phones. I didn't touch him. I just watched, let him dig his own grave. After a few minutes, he ran out of steam, breathing heavy, sweat pouring off him. He looked at the car, then at me, like I was a stranger. No apology, no words, just a broken man disappearing down the street like a ghost. The police came soon after someone had called them. I filed a report, gave them security footage and his info. They said they'd handle it. I expected Mom to take his side, like always. But that night, she called. No crying, no begging, just anger. She told me she kicked Dad out, told him never to come back, mentioned divorce. She said she finally saw him for who he really was, not just the cheating, but everything he'd done. And then she dropped the bomb. She cut off Avery's $800 monthly allowance. If Avery was old enough to pick sides, she was old enough to pay rent. I sat stunned. I had started a fire that was burning their whole house down, and honestly, it felt good. But Dad wasn't finished. For days after Mom kicked him out, it was dead quiet. No calls, no texts, no drama. Like the eye of a hurricane, I took the Honda to get fixed, imagining life without that family weight. Then late one night, the knocking started. Not a tap, a banging, so loud it shook the door. I knew who it was before I saw him. Dad, same old scowl, but ragged, wrinkled clothes, greasy hair, stinking of stale beer and sweat. He pushed past me again, trying to come inside. I blocked him. He started rambling, slurring, talking about how Mom changed the locks, how the other woman threw him out. He said he had nowhere else to go. He said he was family. I said nothing. Let him dig deeper. Then he pulled the real reason. Money. Said he needed cash to get back on his feet. Said he'd pay me back. Said family helps family. I almost laughed. All those times I asked for help as a kid, he told me to figure it out. Every time made clear I was a burden, not a son. I slammed the door in his face. He screamed and pounded, then left. I turned off the porch light, sat on the couch, listened to muffled yelling fade into silence. The next morning, a quieter knock. Avery. She looked exhausted, hair in a bun, dark circles, no anger, just laying it out. Dad came to her apartment, drunk, begging for a place. She said no. Now she felt guilty. Said we had to stick together. Said it was cruel to abandon him. I told her no. I didn't owe him. I spent my life trying to earn his approval. Got nothing but disappointment. I wouldn't throw away my peace for a man who only now felt unwanted. She stared like I was a stranger, mumbled something, and left. I watched her go. Calm. Dad made his choice. So had she. Now, I had to make mine. After Avery stormed off that day, I thought maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. I let myself breathe a little. I pictured Dad finally realizing he'd burned every bridge and crawling away somewhere for good. But peace didn't last long. About 24 hours later, I got a call from my apartment manager. His voice was rough and serious. Caleb, you need to come down to the parking lot, now. My stomach sank. And when I got outside, I felt like I'd stepped into a nightmare. The Honda was wrecked. The windshield was shattered. Every window busted out. 2 tires slashed. Deep scratches carved into the hood. Not random vandalism, ugly words scrawled across the paint, hateful and permanent. And standing next to it, arms crossed, grinning like he'd won the lottery, was Dad. When he saw me, he started clapping slowly, like he was the villain in a movie, basking in his moment. Then he yelled loud enough for half the block to hear. That's what you get for turning your back on blood. I just stood there, stunned. Neighbors gathered, filming and whispering. Some held phones pointed right at us. Dad kept ranting, pacing, screaming about how I'd ruined the family, how I was nothing without him, how everything I had was because of him. I didn't yell back. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Every word, every scream, every insult. The police showed up minutes later. Someone must have called them. Dad huffed, ready to fight, but it was useless. They cuffed him and loaded him into the cruiser before he could finish cursing. One officer asked me if I wanted to press charges. I didn't hesitate. Of course, I did. While they read him his rights, Avery showed up in her battered old car. She practically leapt out and ran toward me, screaming, "How could you do this to Dad? You're tearing our family apart." I looked at her, calm and cold. Family doesn't treat you like garbage. That shut her up. She stood there, fists clenched, breathing hard, before turning and running after the police car. She yelled for them to let Dad go. They ignored her. Later that night, things finally quieted. Mom called. Her voice was clearer than I'd heard in months. She told me she was done, filing for divorce. No spousal support, no joint accounts. She said she was tired of lies and embarrassment. Then she dropped the biggest bomb. She'd found a second phone Dad hid in his toolbox. It was filled with messages. Not just one affair, but 3. One woman had even sent him a photo of a little boy that looked exactly like Avery when she was a toddler. Mom said there was a chance Dad had another family, a whole other life. Suddenly, his distance, his coldness, all made sick sense. He'd been split between 2 families all along. I sat with the phone in my hand, trying to process it. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was the collapse of everything I thought was real. And it wasn't over. The next morning, around 8 a.m., there was another knock at my door. Not loud, polite even. I opened it to find a woman I'd never met. Early 30s, sharp blue eyes, Professional clothes. She introduced herself simply, "I'm Claire." She said she needed to talk about my dad. At first, I thought she might be a lawyer or a neighbor complaining about Dad's recent antics. But then she said she was one of the women Dad had been seeing. Not just a fling, she'd been with him for 3 years. She said Dad promised her marriage, the world, told her he was stuck with Mom because Mom was unstable. She found out about the video I posted, the one that had gone viral overnight because a neighbor's footage was shared on Facebook and TikTok. Dad screaming, getting arrested, his face clear as day. Apparently, lots of people recognized him, and Claire wasn't alone. She said there were 2 other women suing Dad for fraud, financial fraud. He'd borrowed money with phony promises, fake investments, business schemes, tens of thousands of dollars. It felt like a punch to the gut. All my life that he acted like a king, and we were just lucky to orbit him. Now, everything he built was collapsing. Divorce papers, criminal charges, lawsuits, maybe jail. Before she left, Claire looked me in the eyes and said something I'll never forget. "You're better off without him. We all are." After she left, I just sat on the floor staring at the door. It hit me all at once. This wasn't just karma catching up. This was his entire life, all the lies, coming down at once. That night, Avery tried calling me again. I ignored it. I knew what she wanted, to beg me to forgive Dad, to help pay legal fees, to be the bigger person, as if family was some magic band-aid. I was done. For the first time, I understood I didn't owe them a thing. Not him, not Avery, not anyone who stood by and watched him tear me down. When the final crash came, I wouldn't be anywhere near it. A week later, Dad got out on bail, but that didn't help. By then, fraud charges were filed. Mom served divorce papers herself. She even changed the locks again. Sent Dad a bill for half the house repairs just to rub it in. Best part? His secret son wasn't secret anymore. One of the women posted photos online after the story broke, tagged Dad with his full name. Soon everyone in town knew. His employer fired him immediately, not wanting the scandal. Meanwhile, Avery kept calling and texting, begging, then demanding, then threatening. When that didn't work, she showed up at my apartment crying harder than I'd ever seen her. She said Dad was broke and homeless, couch surfing wherever he could, pawned his last possessions. She was about to be evicted herself. Said if I didn't help, I was no better than him. I listened, calm, patient. When she finished, I told her the truth, one last time. Dad made his choices. So did she. So did I. I wasn't going back. She stood there, waiting for me to crack. I didn't. She muttered something and slammed the door hard enough to shake the frame. I didn't flinch. After that, everything stopped. Dad tried calling. I blocked him on everything. Mom didn't mention him anymore. She started traveling, seeing friends, living life. For the first time in decades, she was free. I stayed in my lane, focused on work, saved money, fixed up the Honda until it looked brand new. Every time I drove it, it felt like a trophy. Not for revenge, for survival. About a month after everything exploded, I got a letter. No return address. Inside, a crumpled note from Dad. No apology. No guilt. Just 3 words. "You will regret abandoning me." I laughed, folded it neatly, thrown it in the trash. I realized then the greatest revenge wasn't arrests or lawsuits or broken cars. It was that I didn't care anymore. He burned every bridge, destroyed every relationship, betrayed every ounce of trust. Now he stood alone in the ashes, angry no one would save him. And me, I was finally free. Months passed after Dad's meltdown, and life finally started to settle. The chaos of court cases, broken family ties, and shattered trust slowly faded into a distant, painful memory. I focused on rebuilding my life, quiet mornings with coffee on the balcony, long walks with my dog, evenings spent fixing the Honda until it gleamed like new. The car had become more than just a vehicle. It was a symbol of my survival, a trophy I earned through pain and perseverance. Then, out of nowhere, I got an unexpected call. The number was unfamiliar. I almost ignored it like I always do now, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a lawyer, representing one of the women Dad had been involved with. Apparently, there was more fallout I hadn't anticipated. The lawyer explained that Dad's tangled mess was far from over. He'd used my name on fake business documents, leases, even a life insurance policy without my permission. They suspected I was involved in his scams and needed to confirm my identity to clear things up. I sat frozen, phone in hand, feeling a strange mix of disbelief and exhaustion. After everything, He was still trying to drag me into his mess. I scheduled a meeting with the lawyer the next day. I brought everything: text messages, police reports, security footage, bank statements, the proof that I had nothing to do with Dad's schemes. The lawyer was thorough but polite, clearly relieved once they confirmed I was just another victim. The case went on without me. Last I heard, Dad was hit with back child support he couldn't pay, faced multiple fraud investigations, and possibly jail time. The life insurance policy he'd once fraudulently listed me on had lapsed months ago because he couldn't afford the premiums. It was one last desperate attempt to tie me to his sinking ship, and one more failure. After that, I changed my phone number, moved into a new apartment, and truly left the past behind. I thought that was it. No more surprises. No more drama. No more Dad. But life, as it tends to do, had other plans. About 2 months later, I got an email from Avery. No apology. No catching up. Just 4 simple words. Can we talk? It's about Dad. I stared at the screen, my heart caught somewhere between curiosity and wariness. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We chose a neutral ground, a coffee shop near my apartment. Public, safe, no surprises. And when she arrived, she looked broken. Not just tired, but beaten down in a way that made me realize how deep the damage ran. She sat quietly, avoiding eye contact at first, then got straight to the point. Dad was gone. Completely. Right before the fraud cases really closed in, he'd cleaned out his remaining bank accounts and vanished without a trace. No forwarding address. No phone calls. No goodbye. At first, Avery thought he'd stayed with an old friend. But months passed. No one saw or heard from him. The last confirmed sighting was at a cheap bus station outside the city. She looked scared. The strangest part, she wasn't asking me to help find him. She wasn't begging. She wanted to know if I had any idea if Dad had hidden money, some stash, something left behind before everything collapsed. I almost laughed. After everything, after her calling me selfish, defending him, trying to shame me, here she was, asking if Dad had left her some secret fortune. I told her the truth. Dad never had a hidden fortune. He was broke long before the fall. All he ever had were lies. She nodded quietly, as if she already knew deep down. Before leaving, she said something that stuck with me. I think he always planned on leaving us behind. For the first time, I saw her differently. Not as my sister. Not as an enemy. Just another person Dad used and discarded when he didn't need her anymore. She left without a word. And honestly, I was okay with that. I don't know where Dad is now. Maybe hiding somewhere. Maybe living under another name. Maybe worse. But I don't care. Whatever happens next isn't my problem. I finally understand that running away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's survival. Life moved on. I built a new routine. Tessa and I prepared for our baby, filled with hope and cautious joy. The wounds from the past still throbbed, but they didn't define me anymore. I realized that the real victory wasn't in breaking ties or burning bridges. It was in finding peace within myself. And slowly, that peace was beginning to settle. After Avery left that day, I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. The weight of my family's chaos had finally lifted, but the void it left was undeniable. I sat on my apartment floor, staring at the cracked leather seats of the Honda, thinking about how much had changed and how much I still had to rebuild. Tessa had been my rock through everything. She didn't just stand by me, she held me up when I felt like crumbling. Together, we painted the nursery ceiling with stars that glowed softly at night, and every tiny onesie I folded felt like a stitch in the fabric of the new life we were building. The day our son was born, I held him in my arms and felt a peace I hadn't known for years. This little boy wasn't just a new beginning, he was proof that love could grow from broken soil. But just as I thought the storm had passed, my phone buzzed one chilly morning. It was a message from Hannah. I almost deleted it without reading. Part of me wanted nothing to do with her anymore. But curiosity, or maybe the last thread of family, made me open it. She wanted to meet, wanted to talk. About Dad. I debated ignoring it, but something inside said maybe this was the chance to finally close the chapter completely. We met at a quiet park bench, surrounded by autumn leaves falling like broken promises. Hannah looked worn, the fight gone from her eyes. She told me about Dad's final disappearance, how he left no trace, no goodbye, just a ghost of what he once was. She admitted she'd been wrong to defend him, wrong to think family meant sticking together no matter what. She asked if I could help her start over, if there was any way to build a new kind of family, one that wasn't built on lies and hurt. I looked at her, saw the girl who was hurt, scared, and trying to find her way just like me. I told her what I'd learned: family isn't just blood or history, it's respect, it's honesty, it's choosing to show up, even when it's hard. We talked for hours, not about the past, but about what could be. Not about forgiveness, not yet, but about understanding. Maybe, one day, we'd find a way forward. Meanwhile, life outside my family drama was blossoming. Tessa and I celebrated every milestone: the first smile, the first crawl, the first word, Dad. Our home filled with laughter and hope. The Lexus, once a symbol of pain, now carried us to new memories: late-night hospital visits, family picnics, quiet mornings at the park. I no longer saw it as a trophy of survival, but as a vehicle to my future. I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't about breaking them down. It was about building myself up. One afternoon, as I watched my son nap under a patchwork quilt, I thought about all the pain, the betrayal, and the years lost. And I felt something unexpected: gratitude. Grateful for the hard lessons. Grateful for the strength I found in letting go. Grateful for the family I chose, not the one I was born into. I understood then that freedom doesn't come from revenge or punishment. It comes from peace. So I let go of the bitterness. I let go of the anger. I embraced the life I'd fought so hard to create. And as I watched my son's tiny fingers curl around mine, I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. To those still struggling with family pain, you are not alone. Your worth isn't measured by their acceptance. Your family can be the ones who choose to love you fully, flaws and all. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away to find yourself. And in that freedom, you just might find the family you deserve. Thank you for reading my story. It wasn't easy to share, but if it helps even one person realize their value and reclaim their peace, it's worth it. This is my truth, my survival, my hope.